Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are joining us today for this season finale. We are coming to an end to season 5 of the Africa Football Business Show, and what a fitting finale we have, engaging with some who are still in their prime, deeply engaged in the game of football. At the top of their careers. I'm sure I could always go further. So really happy, really feel honored today to be joined by Ashleigh Plumptre from Leicester City Football Club, the women's side, and Beryly Lubala, my friend from Blackpool FC, currently on loan at Colchester. So I take this opportunity first to just appreciate our sponsors, our partners who've made this possible, starting with OTB Africa, Palmas. We also have the Sports DAO, and who have joined us recently, as well as ISD Law Business School. So here at the Africa Football Business Show, it's all about education, at the same time enjoying entertainment and learning about how the industry is working in Africa, but also this time in the African diaspora. So I'll just invite our guests to do a brief intro of themselves, and then we can go ahead. And we'll start with you, Ashleigh.
Hi, yeah. So my full name is Ashleigh Plumptre. I play for Leicester currently. I'm a centre back. I'm 24, and I started playing for the Super Falcons of Nigeria just over a year ago now.
Okay, excellent, Ashleigh. Welcome to the Africa Football Business Show. Bez, more about you.
Yeah, hi. My full name is Beryly Lubala. Currently playing at Blackpool Football Club. On loan to Colchester. Yes, born in Congo-Kinshasa, and happy to be here with both of you.
Excellent, Bez. Welcome to the Africa Football Business Show. And maybe we'll continue with you as you're on screen at the moment and ask you, when did you start playing football, Bez?
It's always a funny question. I guess most players would say is from when you could remember you was I was playing football. But I'll say when my first team was under 8, local team in Leicester, Carib, and I played locally for a while. So around 8 years old was when I started playing football.
Instead, and where was this? Sorry, come again.
Yeah, this was in Leicester.
In Leicester. Okay,
Yeah.
so where Ashleigh is at the moment. What about you, Ashleigh? When did you start playing football?
I started playing when I was about 4. And I always played. I guess I was in the era of a lot of girls had to play with boys, but I never played for a boys' team. So I played for a local team in Leicestershire called Asfordby from the age of 4 until I was 8, and then I joined the academy at Leicester from 8 until I was 14.
Okay, and were you ever involved in other sports, or was it football right from the start, and that's what you chose to pursue?
No. So my mum would always say I had to have a ball in my hands or at my feet. So I was one of those kids that just wanted to do like every sport. I played netball a lot when I was younger as well, and got to a point where I had to pick between netball and football. In netball, I ended up fouling people too much, so I was like, okay, football's probably the next best option for me. But yeah, I was one of those kids that just wanted to be active. I wasn't necessarily just a complete lover of football. I just loved sport in general. So yeah, from 4 until now, I'm 24 now. I've just always enjoyed doing any kind of sport, really, bar swimming.
Wow. And what at what point did you decide like you could do this professional, like you wanted to take up football as a career? And what's that like? What's that thought process that you're going through?
Yeah, I think a lot of the girls I've played with growing up, they always dreamt of being a professional footballer. I think I was a little bit different. I always enjoyed playing, but I never dreamt of being a professional footballer. It actually wasn't until I went to university in America, and it wasn't until my second to last year there, so I must have been about 20, where I had the discussion with my dad, and he was like, do you know what, you should try professional football for a year and a half. My first contract was 18 months, and he was like, just want to say you've done it, and I sacrificed a lot, obviously, growing up, so he's always like, it would have been a shame if I never did it. And it's not that I didn't want to do it, I had a passion for healthcare as well when I was at uni, so it was kind of figuring out whether I wanted to carry on with football or go more the healthcare route. And now 3 years, coming up to 3 years later, I'm still playing, and I can't imagine doing anything different at the minute.
Okay, lovely. And yeah, you mentioned you said at the university. So all this time you have been pursuing, you are playing football actively, and at the same time you are studying. How have you managed to handle the two? And what's been your experience in this case as a if I say student athlete, but now going into professional? How have you managed all this? Yeah.
Yeah, I was only having a discussion with somebody today about this because I went to university in America, they're quite like the education side was just as important as the sport aspect of things. So I was used to almost acting and living like a professional from the age of like 17, 18. So my actual transition to full-time football was probably easier than my transition going to university, because I had like a block of training from like 7 to 11 every day when I was in America. Then I'd have classes after that. So my schedule was always really busy, and I had to be organized and professional in that side of things. So when I only had football to focus on, it was actually way more easier for me because I didn't have to worry about classes or anything.
All right. What about you, Bez? At what point did you decide you're going to pursue a career in football? Were you always interested in playing professionally? What else were you engaged in?
I guess I played a lot of sports as well, but football was always the dream. From the first time I watched a professional game and watching TV, watching my favorite players. Obviously, being an Arsenal supporter, watching the likes of Henry, Bergkamp, it's like you just want to play football. You want to be in that stage. So the whole, since on the 8th leading up, I always just wanted to get into a professional setup and basically call myself a professional player. And obviously I managed to do that when I signed for Birmingham City as a scholar, which led on to me becoming a pro at the age of 18 after my scholarship.
Okay. Just to enlighten our viewers a bit more, the systems here. When you say you were signed as a scholar, what does that mean at Birmingham City?
So that is when you do education and also playing football at the same time. So it's an apprenticeship. That's when I signed at Birmingham City, and doing my BTEC courses as well as playing football, and then you almost graduate into becoming a professional football player at the end of your 2-year scholarship.
Excellent. I'm very keen on that because what you find in Africa a lot of the time, even though education is still regarded as important, we don't really have a system that supports this kind of dual approach to developing players, where their education is taken, you can say, almost of equal importance as their football. And these are some of the things we are looking at, especially to learn from our African diaspora. But that said, I'm sure it has taken a lot of sacrifice to get to where you are currently with championship. It's Blackpool is the championship. I think it takes a lot of sacrifice to get to this level of professionalism. That's top level. What are some of the sacrifices you've made as a person, as a player, to get to where you are, Bez?
I would say there's a lot of sacrifices along the way. Diet, time with your friends, time with your family. And the more I progressed in my career, becoming a professional football player, the sacrifices get you even more. The competition that you're up against, and you want to stay ahead of the curve. And as you know, in football, so many people want to do it, and the numbers of people actually making it in the game and being present and staying in the game is very low. So the sacrifice of not seeing your family and making sure you're eating the right things and maybe not enjoying the same as others might do. All of that come into consideration. Yeah.
So I guess you wouldn't be a regular at the McDonald's and the KFCs if you have them there. You have to be a bit more strict with yourself. It's interesting. You also mentioned having to sacrifice things such as family. I think these are some of the biggest sacrifices we make when we decide or we dedicate ourselves to something. But still, I'm sure you have received a lot of support from your family. You didn't perhaps tell us more about your family setting. But how important have the people around you been in you developing as a player, be it your parents, brothers and sisters, if you have them, coaches, other players? And do you have any mentors or people you've looked up to as you've pursued your career as a professional footballer?
Support-wise, family is very important. My mom and dad put me everywhere. From the age of 8, you know how hard it is to get to one place to another, and you've got games across the country, and the support was amazing. And even when things are not going well, you have your ups and downs. Not getting contracts or not getting picked for certain teams, but you carry on going, and that journey that they have to take alongside you and keep encouraging you. And they're the biggest support system you have, really. At the end of the day, when you go home, win or lose, they still love you the same, and that's important for every player when they go back home, to have that love, to have that foundation that was there from the start. For coaches, definitely when I was at Birmingham City, Gareth Holmes, Steve Spooner, who were the under 18 coaches, they really developed me as a player, mentally as well. And some of these tools stay with you throughout your whole career, and you don't lose these these tools, you don't lose these traits that you pick up along the way that help you stay in the game and that help you progress within your career. And as a mentor, somebody that's been really close to me in the football world, and also as a close family friend, was Dave Barnett. He was an ex-Birmingham City player. And that was somebody that I always spoke to, who's played the game. And it's almost like talking to your parents about life. They've got more experience. They can tell you certain things and of what they've seen. Dave was that person that I spoke to about things on the pitch and what he thought and with his experiences. And all these things help you progress and keep going.
Excellent. I'll just maybe the same questions to you, Ashleigh, in terms of the sacrifice you've made to get to the level you are. We still expect you to go even higher, still being only 24 and probably making even more sacrifices. But yeah, what are some of these sacrifices you've made, and how have the people around you been crucial in supporting your career?
Yeah, I always found the word sacrifice really interesting when I was younger, only because you obviously have to have a very different lifestyle, being a footballer and trying to get to where you want to be. But I didn't necessarily feel like I had to sacrifice, like when it came to like socializing with friends and things like that. I never really wanted to go out. I actually preferred being home. Like for me, I was always quite an organized person. So like it would stress me out more knowing I had to like go out with my friends and I might like go to bed late and wake up tired for a game. Like for me, it wasn't worth it to go out and do that. So in that respect, it was okay. I think the hardest, I guess, sacrifice is almost just allowing yourself to be young, I guess. Like I think because I was always quite my lifestyle was always quite strict from a very early age. You always get in a routine of, school, football, home, eat, like everything's very sometimes it'd be quite monotonous. So that was quite difficult, especially when you're young and you want to just have some downtime and chill time. That was sometimes hard. But I think from a young age, I knew what I wanted quite early. Like when I went to America, I was looking at universities in America from about 12. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do quite young in that respect. And I knew that the lifestyle I had when I was growing up, I knew that ultimately I'd get to a point where like I'm in the position I am today, and the things that I probably didn't get to do when I was younger, I probably have a bit more freedom to do now. I mean, even take yesterday, we were off today. I had training and I got to like leave training and I went down to London with my friend, and that stuff I probably, when you're younger, you want to be able to do, but now I can do with the lifestyle and that I have. I get a good rest, work play balance now, more so than I did when I was younger, probably.
All right. Just switch up the conversation a bit and go into this idea of being African diaspora, and it's fitting that we continue with you, Ashleigh. You're born and raised in the UK. A very interesting story. You represented England in the youth levels, but you still feel this connection to Africa. Why is this? For example, what contributed to your decision to represent the Super Falcons at the senior level?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it was only in lockdown that I had really good conversations with my family, and I always would talk about, and still now, I feel like I have to play with a purpose that goes beyond just playing football itself. For me personally, just playing football wouldn't fulfill me necessarily enough. I feel like I'd still have a void if I was only playing football. And as much as I'm privileged to be in a position I am, I wanted to play for a purpose. And for me, that's what Nigeria gives me. I was obviously brought up in a very, my dad is Nigerian, my mum is British, but I've always grown up in England and I wasn't brought up Nigerian. I was brought up very English, really. And my dad was, to be honest, my dad was brought up in England. My granddad was the one who left Nigeria to come to England. So I found it important for me to discover and uncover my heritage more. Especially, I talk about my sister a lot. I think in other interviews, I don't know if you've seen, but I'll bring her up a lot because that was really the catalyst for me wanting to join Nigeria. She's only 12, but she's very passionate about her heritage and learning Yoruba from my granddad, and has been for a couple of years now. And I recognise the importance of trying to discover more about our culture. Obviously, being brought up British, I never was exposed to, like, I saw family and things like that, but it's very different than going to Nigeria and visiting family and playing amongst some of these girls who are born and raised in Nigeria. So for me, it was, I wanted to go on this journey more so with my sister from the beginning, but now there is a part of it that is just for me. Like, I've been exposed to so many things since joining the team that goes way beyond football, and I only hope that the more that I'm with the Super Falcons and everything that the team represent, I mean, they really do play with a lot of spirit. Like, they always talk about, before we go on the pitch, they talk about dying on the field if they have to, and I like being a part of that. I like knowing that I would also do the same thing for them. And those kind of things. It's not just kicking a ball about. It's integrating with a group of women who I wouldn't have if it wasn't for the national team, and experiencing all the things that we have so far. And hopefully in the future, like, obviously we've got a World Cup coming up. It's just getting to be a part of a national team and travel and learn more about what I never knew growing up is huge for me.
Excellent. We have a question from our viewers, which I think is linked to what you're doing. As an African diaspora, do you feel those within the football sector on ground in Africa, or do you feel like you can relate, or is it a challenge? Do you connect with the African football community, if you can say that?
Yeah, even that was like the first time I went to Nigeria was a training camp, but then my first competitive game for Nigeria was in Abuja, and the one thing that sticks out to me is the fans. Like, you can't replicate Nigerian fans anywhere else. Like, I've obviously played in front of a fair few people in England, and obviously the support is always there, but the passion that these fans have for their national teams, it doesn't matter that it's the Super Eagles or the Super Falcons, they live for their football. So that wasn't difficult in the sense of trying to relate to them. They were all super welcoming. But obviously there is culturally a difference. Like, when I first was introduced, I use this story a lot, like when I was first introduced to the team on my first camp, I was obviously very nervous. I didn't know how they were going to take me, and I just wanted to go in there and then to feel comfortable to speak to me and everything like that. And the one thing that actually was the best icebreaker for me, no matter how embarrassing it was my initiation, because obviously in Nigerian culture, singing and dancing is huge, and I'm not obviously I'm like the worst dancer on the team, but I just went for it when I was there. And as soon as that happened, all the girls came and hugged me. They were way more open to having conversations with me, and since then it was the best icebreaker. I don't even care that I made a fool of myself at the time, because it was a good moment to share with them.
Brilliant, Ashleigh. Really appreciating sharing these can say good moments you've had with the Nigerian national team, and just continuing to enjoy your experience there. What about you, Bez? You haven't represented the DRC yet, and I'm sure this is part of your plan, and you're probably working towards it. You were born in the DRC, yes, but you left quite early and more or less raised in Europe. How do you feel about Africa? What's this connection? What gives you this drive to want to represent the DRC at the highest level?
Like it's just been said, heritage really. Going back home, the love, even though I left at a very young age, the love that I still feel through my social media, like my Facebook. As soon as I post a picture, there's just so much love from everyone from DR Congo, and something that just been said as well about how the fans are. That feeling, that love of going back home and wanting to represent my place of birth, and I feel it would be something just proud for my family, especially my dad. He talks about it all the time. But I don't know, like I said, I haven't played yet, so I don't know much how it's going on over there. But from what we have here in England and the culture that we have here, I only think it can only get better with the likes of the African players that are going back to Africa to play, to represent their countries, and that interest is growing more and more. And but myself personally, I'm very interested in that and to represent DR Congo at some stage in my career.
You think you'll get a cap soon?
Well, I guess it depends on form and how well you do. But yeah, of course, you always think positive as a player, and you keep pushing towards that. For sure.
Excellent. You have a comment from Kipto Mirmed here from Eldoret FC. Proud of you, Plumptre and Lubala, Africa, my home. So yeah, we have. It's really good to see this urge to represent Africa or to grow Africa and football indeed globally, because personally I believe when African football grows, the whole ecosystem, global ecosystem, will benefit. And just to steer away from football but still remain within the space outside of football, what other initiatives are you pursuing, especially to secure your future as a person, as an individual? We are all aware that a football career is a short one, and yeah, usually I'm sure you still have another 10 years or 15, but there are things that you do um, to ensure that you secure your future as much as possible, or initiatives that you do to support others. I can see you're wearing very proudly the BL Ballers t-shirt. So it would be interesting if you can share more about this and what you do outside of your professional career, Bez.
Yes, of course. BR Ball is an organization that I started off in 2019. And yeah, what I wanted to do was just have an impact on people in my community, the players that I've seen, and what we try and do is try and connecting people to the professional game, through our tournaments, football tournaments that we run every year. We've had 4 successful tournaments now, where we've had the likes of Yannick Balassi and female players in the professional game as well, and very inclusive, and the diversity of it is something that's beautiful that comes out of it. And just like we said about Africa, what we do over here, and we want to move it along to Africa as well at one point, with the educational side of things, how you see how football setups are set up here, and you want participants, you want people in the community thinking on both sides, on and off the pitch, and how they can better themselves. And that's something that I've always took pride in, to better myself off the pitch and on the pitch. And this was my way of doing it, through BL Ballers, through helping others.
Okay, so look forward to seeing a BL Ballers tournament in Africa soon.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be working towards that one day.
Super. I love to hear that. What about you, Ashleigh? You mentioned you're studying. How far along are you? What are your plans outside of professional football? What are some of the things you're engaged in that you'd love our viewers to know about? How are you contributing in the community as a professional footballer? You have a lot of influence, for example. Kindly share.
Yeah, I mean, my dream is to actually set something up myself, as Bez has already done, so he's ahead of me. But like I said to you before, I think for me, the most fulfilling part of my job is what I can give back. So ultimately, I want to be able to do something both here and in Nigeria on the educational standpoint. But I haven't actually started anything up yet. I do a lot of like charity work here and there. I mean, I did an event not long ago, and I wanted to have an input on the money that the money that was raised for this event, where it went to, and the charity they ended up finding was a charity called Wonder, who I actually went to their 10-year anniversary yesterday. And I was only speaking to them down there, thinking about like what else I can do to help them, because obviously having the platform I have, I do think I have a responsibility in trying to do something with that. So Wonder, they support young women all around the world at trying to give them education opportunities in places where they can't really access it or they can't afford to. And I actually found them because they do a lot of work in Nigeria. So for me, it's trying to figure out how I can have that impact that goes beyond football. Because for me, as much as football has been like the driver to a lot of things for me, like ultimately it was through education, like going to America, getting my degree, that I've actually, it's just little things, whether it's like getting your degree or not. For me, like going to America, it was just growing as a human being. Like I would never, when I was younger, I never would be able to have a conversation with you right now. I was too nervous and I lacked a lot of confidence. So I know the value on education, and especially to people in areas that they just can't access it or nor afford it. I know that for them, I don't know whatever dreams they have, just little things in terms of personal development are huge. So I want to continue trying to involve myself with charity work, but ultimately my dream, if it was a dream, my dream would be to basically do what Bez is doing, set something up for myself and actually see directly how I can have an impact.
Excellent. Then maybe on the same line, how would you advise, for example, this is I think one of the best ways of giving back. What advice would you give to young girls in this case who are looking to make a career in football? We know at the moment, for example, there is a huge drive towards getting more women or growing the women's game and getting more women into professional football. What would you advise girls who are looking to make a living out of the game?
Yeah, I think, well, I can only speak on my experience, is never relying, to get to the point I'm at now, I think the most important thing for me was never to rely on football itself. So because I had passions outside of football, I never was totally consumed by football, and in turn that actually helped me to be a better player. So I think I know a lot of players and a lot of girls who you can be so consumed by football and dictated, like there's so many emotions that come with football, to the point where whether you lose or whether you win, that dictates how you are all the time. And then outside of football, you end up losing who you are because you're just consumed by being a footballer. Yet football comes with ups and downs, and the more that you are consumed in it, the harder it is to almost like differentiate yourself from the sport itself. So for me, it was making sure that I had other passions and was never completely dictated by football itself to be able to be a good player. So I like to call myself like a professional player. I always conduct myself in the right way, but I have no shame in saying like I put just as much priority on the things I do outside of football, that almost not only take your mind off football itself, but it gives you another driver so that you're fresh when you go to football, and you know that it's not constantly something that you're almost like relying upon, and in turn that gives you a little bit more freedom. So I felt a lot more free, especially this year. Like I was consumed by football last year and it had a negative impact on me, but we haven't had the best start to the season, but I feel way much better in myself, and the little things you notice as a player in terms of how, I don't know, courageous you are in games or how much freedom you feel when you're playing. I feel more so this year because I'm not allowing football to completely dictate my life. That makes sense. So this is a long-winded way of saying for any young girl is making sure that you have as many, like having other hobbies is not a bad thing. Like throwing yourself into more than just one sport. I would do it as long as you have a good balance and don't burn yourself out. I think it's important.
Excellent. That's really amazing thoughts from you, Ashleigh. Well appreciated. And maybe Basil, just on the same question. I'm sure even in your short career, still you've seen a lot of players, if you could say, fall by the wayside in terms of not being able to make it to the top. What would you advise young boys trying to get into the football space as professional? I believe this is also one of the reasons you started BL Ballers, to see if you can support some amateur players to get to the professional ranks. So, what advice would you give these young players?
For me, discipline, hard work, obviously all the things that people say all the time, but I really do feel like they're the foundations that you start with. As long as you're going out there and you're putting in 100%, it doesn't matter if the person next to you is doing whatever, but as long as you're putting in 100% for you, I feel like there's some things to stand by, traits that to always keep. I really do agree with what Ashleigh said there, about having a diverse and looking at different things, because it does bring a calmness to your mind at the same time as well. And I feel like players that do that they benefit the change room even more, because I see players around me that are overthinking things and thinking tomorrow's the end of the world because of what's just happened here. And I know also on the flip side, people would argue that you want to be so determined and so focused just on football because that's what's going to make you the best living. And it's not always the case for everyone. Not everyone is at the top of the tree. Not everyone's Cristiano Ronaldo. Obviously, I'm at Colchester United right now, and obviously the gap in wage is probably different to the top of what you can imagine. So I feel like it's important for players, especially in the levels that I'm at now, to think about things outside of football and that they can do. Obviously, I do run BL Ballers, but when I was at Birmingham, before I left there, I managed to complete my UEFA in coaching. And that was something that I wanted to do and just tick things off. And like, you know what, I've got that in my bucket, just in case I can bring it out for another time. But for me, yeah, determination, hard work as players, and knowing that it's okay to have setbacks. Obviously, we haven't spoke about it much today, but I've had many setbacks. From before going to Birmingham, I was at Burton Albion, got released at 13, crying on the way home. It's the end of the world for me. Playing grassroots again till the age of 16, getting a phone call for a game to go and play at Birmingham City, a trialist game, and the two coaches that I mentioned, Gareth Home and Steve Spooner, was watching that game, and from that game scoring 2 goals, their mind was made up. There was like, come back for the next 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I managed to sign a scholarship, and it's just them type of things when players can deal with setbacks, knowing that it's okay to not make it pro by the age of 18, 21. It could happen at 24 if you really wanna do it, and I think that only helps the way you could do that even better is by what Ashleigh said about having something else. So whilst you're pursuing that dream, you're still working on other things on the side, but not giving up on the dream of becoming a professional football player. I think that's definitely a good formula, and anyone that follows that, you've got a good chance. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in life, but I feel like you have a good chance of making it into the pro game.
Oh, great remarks there. And as we come to the 45-minute mark. I know this is your usual half around half time, but we are almost coming to an end. Maybe just to take matters back into Africa, and from your experience, I'm sure you visit a lot. You've seen the Africa football scene, but it is evident Africa is still lagging when it comes to the business of football and how we run things around here. And from your experience out there, sometimes when you look at the continent, sorry, what are some of the areas you think we can improve, Bez? And Ashleigh, I'll also maybe bring you in. You've had the opportunity to play professionally at Leicester, and you with the Super Falcons. What are some of the differences you see? Some of the things that you think, oh, here probably could learn from what I've been doing. Go ahead, Bez.
Yeah, for me, not being stepping foot in Africa, obviously being very young, I would relate it to how things are run in my where I am at the moment, and what I can see what works well with, obviously, like you said, the apprentices and getting young players into training from young ages, the facilities. I'm guessing there's obviously better resources in Europe, in most areas, but I see all the local football clubs where they're given a safe environment for young girls, young boys to come and play and to come and develop their skills through football. I'm sure Ashleigh will agree. You learn life skills. You learn about getting tackled bad and getting up, and all these things happen. And these just little bits where I feel like looking from a distance, if we can implement that in the African game and in Africa, having these facilities, having educational structure where you can play football and have education, I feel it will only develop and be great for the game in Africa.
Super. I think that ties in well with a question from one of our viewers, Fred of Diambo. Ashleigh is talking about football and charity. I think that was earlier. And since football is big worldwide, it's the most followed sport globally, how can we use football to sensitize people about other areas within our communities? I think these are good questions for you, Ashleigh.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's huge. I think ultimately you need people who are actually passionate about it. I think it's very noticeable when you have people who have just been elected to run some like a community event or something, who have just been told to do it, yet don't see the benefit of actually doing it. It kind of ruins it. You need people to firstly understand the importance of how necessary those kind of little clinics and stuff are. But it's like what Bez and I have been talking about on the call, for like football in itself is huge for the player, but it's the other things that it brings about. It's like for young people in a community setting, it's having to communicate with people you don't normally communicate to. Obviously, the big part of football is communication, whether you're playing, whether you're off the pitch. That's a huge thing, and you learn that through little events like that can be held in a community. It's yeah, like I said, like learning how to come back from setbacks, but also getting into hard tackles and knowing that sometimes you're going to get hurt, but you can't always like sit about and cry about it. It's little things like that are just like always like life lessons. So coming back to the question, I think it's having people who are passionate about having an impact. It's also knowing the necessity of what people who are passionate about this kind of stuff, the greater good it can kind of bring about. So like the more people that are passionate about it and have an influence on these young people, those young people hopefully want to pass it on, and it becomes like a domino effect. but yeah, I think ultimately it starts with that, and then with that is the educational side of it. You know, you have people that are passionate, or that these young people look up to. They those young people are more likely to listen to people that they idolize than, I guess, anybody else who probably isn't as passionate about community work and things like that. So I do think that isn't something that's while I've been with the national team that I've been able to see, because every time I've been in Nigeria, we're there literally just for, like, I go to my training session then and go back to the hotel. But I would love to actively be out there with young people, and hopefully have an influence that way. I know, like, just speaking of teammates, Asisat Oshuala is brilliant at that. I mean, she's just set up her own academy, and it's a huge success already. But then it's like, how can we maximize that? How can we then educate other people on knowing the importance of that, and what those young girls who are part of that program, what they're learning beyond football? You know, having to be around all these other teammates and girls that they wouldn't have known before, and making friendships, making lifelong friendships. Again, it's bigger than football.
Oh, brilliant comments as we come to an end. So, as we know, this is season 5 of the Africa Football Business Show, Transforming Our Game, and it's a build up to the inaugural Africa Football Business Summit, which is supposed to be next week on Tuesday and Wednesday. That's the 18th and 19th. And speaking from my perspective, I saw a lot of this kind of events when I was based in Europe, but I realized there was very little of that happening in Africa, and that's one of the reasons we at the Football Foundation for Africa have organized this. Just a quick question to you, Bez, and Ashleigh as well. How important are such platforms when it comes to development of sport, and how can players, even yourselves who are still active, be part of these conversations around developing the game? Bez.
I would say it always starts with a conversation. I think creating the conversation, getting people talking, getting people together to give their opinions of the positives and the negatives of the game in Africa and how to develop things. And I think it's so important to get people in the room, and that's one of the hardest things at times, to get everyone in a room. Firstly, to even start a conversation. When it comes to players, for me, going back on what Ashleigh said, I think it's important that contact, that seeing people in person. You know, I feel like that has a big effect on development of football when it comes to young players, young girls, young boys. I think my personal experience, seeing a player in person, going to watch a game, and that feeling of like, he's a touch away from me, or I can do what he's doing. For me, is players getting out their way, going into these communities, and going into setups where people are playing football and having talks and training with them, or coaching and things like that. I feel they just go a long way. They inspire so much, and I feel like players can do a lot more of that. My view.
All right, over to you, Ashleigh, as we come to an end of the show tonight. Thank you very much for your insights. It's been lovely for me to listen to you. Go on, Ashleigh.
Oh, sorry. I think Bez has summed it up pretty well. I think we're on the same wavelength for a lot of things, but when I speak about this, it's honestly the stuff I'm the most passionate about, because I just see so much in football, how much, like, we talk about, especially in England at the minute with the Euros and everything that's gone on. I know that the women's team are really having a push to make sure that all girls have like access to football, and make sure girls can play in schools. And we most of the time we like to think about it as, you know, it's just it's an exercise for them to be able to participate in. But what we don't put enough emphasis on is actually what comes from that. You know, again, I just want to reiterate that I think for me, football hasn't. Do you know what? When I stop playing, I think the things that I will remember most are the relationships you end up making, the personal development, things you see in your character, confidence building, and things like that, overcoming setbacks. All those things are the things I'll remember probably when I stop playing. I mean, even if I think of my own journey now, I know that football-wise, yeah, I can think about little technical, tactical stuff that I've developed in the last couple of years, but it's more like personal growth, just as an individual, that I'll remember. And I don't think we emphasize that enough to people who are I guess unaware of the benefits it has, like in general sports brings that about. But yeah, I think the importance of giving, like I spoke to, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I just know that I've had a few conversations with people in Nigeria with there was this woman who came in who was talking about like the girl child and the narrative of what sometimes what young girls are expected to be like in Nigeria is, and what like education is huge, and I'll always put a lot of emphasis on it, but education sometimes, like sitting in a classroom and studying, that gives you one side of educational development, but actual like the things that we need to be able to socialize and go out in the world and be able to have conversations with people and meet people and do things like this, it comes from, for me, it's come from playing football. So I hope that like by having these kind of conversations, and with more and more people seeing these kind of conversations and hearing about it, it will kind of change the perspective of some people who think, sport isn't necessarily important because it's not a math or an English, but actually it's a confidence builder. It's a training your mind to be stronger, because you have to overcome something that somebody else might do and you might not, and you'll get left by the wayside. So yeah, I think it's huge. These conversations are great.
Super. Props, yeah, great to share your mind and go off on a tangent. Sometimes that's what we need also, to just learn more about ourselves and about others. So yeah, probably you could take also this opportunity just to share your concluding remarks so that we don't go past the hour, and then Bez, you'll also share your concluding remarks. Go ahead, Ashleigh.
Yeah, first I just want to thank you for inviting me on the show. To begin with, this is obviously the Africa realm is all quite new for me, but I'm feeling so much, firstly, love from the people who are interested in knowing about me, but also like I'm excited to see what kind of impact I can have, but also the people I can learn from. The biggest thing I've had having these kind of conversations and being with my teammates in Nigeria is the things that I'm learning, and for me that's invaluable. So yeah, I wish the show a lot of luck, and I hope to be on again, hopefully with Bez, because I think we did quite well together, and we can go on again sometime. Brilliant.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ashleigh. For us, it's a privilege for you to take the time to join us and to share your insights, your experiences. We do not take this for granted. So thank you very much. Over to you, Bez.
Yeah, to start off with, just a massive thank you to yourself, Brian, for Africa, the FFA, and just for having us on. It's been amazing to sit here with Ashleigh and talk and just bounce back. And for me, like it's amazing. It's amazing because Africa, how much Africa means to a lot of people in the world. And for me, I see it even over here in our changing rooms, how the culture is changing. You know what I mean? Everyone from different backgrounds, they're listening to Afrobeats. The radios are playing Afrobeats more, and Africa is just, it's where people want to go and where people want to go and develop. And I think these shows like this, it's just credit to yourselves. It enhances that, and it gives that energy. And yeah, I feel like it can only get better. And of course, I want to be back on here myself as well. hopefully with Ashleigh again, and talking about football in Africa and how we can develop it. And just before I go, actually, for the business summit that you've got next week, my friend Jordan from Diaspora made you guys a top. So
cool.
we'll be sending this out. I'll be getting a friend of mine who's going to be attending to bring you guys some, and hopefully you like it and it can go towards something that obviously develops football in Africa.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Bez, and to your friend. See, that is the Dodiji Otto. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to receiving these great gifts. Always welcome to the content. So, to our viewers, that was Beryly Lubala, Bez, as I like to call him, and Ashleigh Plumptre. Really honored to have them here on the show. They want to come back. I will promise them they will be back. Whether I'll bring them back together, that's debatable. But definitely looking forward to hosting the two of you again. The conversation has been inspiring for me, and I'm sure for a lot others out there. As you can see, some of our viewers appreciate your views and the thoughts you've shared with us. That's Fred Odhiambo. So definitely this was the season 5 finale, transforming our game. And next week, the 18th and 19th, here in Nairobi, we have the inaugural Africa Football Business Summit. For those who have joined us today, we look forward to seeing you in person. I think both our guests have talked about the importance of having these in-person meetings and creating connections, conversations that will shape really the future of the game in Africa and globally. So thank you very much, Beryly Lubala and Ashleigh Plumptre. At this point, I also bid our viewers goodbye. Thank you for joining us. Without you also, we wouldn't be here. And we look forward to season 6 of the Africa Football Business Show soon. Bye-bye for now.